order, I don't think. Welcome to 99% Geek Presents, a weekly geeky blog. I'm your host and writer behind 99geek.ca, Andrew Geczy. As primarily a fiction writer, releasing chapters of my books in weekly chunks on my Patreon, like episodes of TV shows, when I'm not working nights and a poverty nightmare to make ends meet. Thankfully, I haven't had to do that since November. I wanted my brand, 99% Geek, to offer more content that might keep people coming back. I don't have much to offer besides my writing, but I'm passionate about pop culture and try to keep myself as up to date on politics, science, and art as I can. Being a huge TV nerd, I run down the best shows of the week, go over all the major news headlines for people who have maybe gotten too tired to follow regular news, breaking it down and explaining it for people who might feel unable to follow along. And before anything else, I spotlight something cool and geeky for the week. Remember, you can follow along by going to patreon.com/99geek. That's up there. This is Geekly Weekly number 81 for Friday, January 15th. And this week's highlight is Hitman. I don't know if anyone else out there has ever played the Hitman games. I believe people out there exist who have played the Hitman games and know a lot more about them than I do. Because they sell quite well and keep getting sequels. If you've never played a Hitman game, even if you don't think that's pretty sounds like your sort of thing, maybe you're not a fan of killing things. So, like maybe you're a fan of like video games, but you only play like The Sims or Civilization, or you don't like shooting games and things like that. What makes the Hitman franchise so great is it's more like a puzzle than it is anything else, where you're given these big open world environments, and you have to, and then you have these objectives, and you have to kind of puzzle out how you're going to accomplish that. And you can do that in any numerous variety of ways. That's always been the promise of the series from the beginning, but as someone who has been going through all of the older games over the past number of months, I can assure you that I don't think they've ever achieved what they were aiming for until the recent reboot in 2016. So anyone looking to give the series a try, honestly, just start there. One thing that's cool about the new series of games is that if you get if you have Hitman 1, maybe you got it for free with PlayStation Plus, but you never played it. It's just been sitting there in your library, which is smart if you're a person who does that. I do that too. But you can you can get Hitman 2, and then you can take get the Hitman 1 levels that you already own, and you can put them into Hitman 2 and play the whole game inside Hitman 2 and get all the achievements in there and unlock all kinds of awesome stuff in there. And now that Hitman 3 is coming out, you can take the levels from Hitman 1 and Hitman 2, move them all into Hitman 3, play them all in Hitman 3 with all the upgrades there and all the new achievements. And for the first time, you can even bring your progress from Hitman 2 into Hitman 3. Apparently, the progress didn't carry forward from Hitman 1 to Hitman 2. So if you got Hitman 1 super cheap or for free with PS Plus, and then Hitman 2 goes on sale for like $20 all the time nowadays, you could grab all the levels from that, then get Hitman 3 when it comes out this week, and you have the whole series that you can play inside the new game. In VR if you have PlayStation VR, which is really cool, and it's the best way to experience the game in my opinion. So that's a highlight of the week. Moving on from there, the sometimes I give the Geekly Weekly's names and sometimes I don't. This week the name is A Week Without Smoking, because I have now gone a week without smoking. I think it's day 7 now. I think it was day 6 last night when I wrote this, but I've slept since then, so now it's on day 7. And I have spent much of this week just banging my head against walls and into desks and anything I can find, just trying to keep my mind off of my nicotine addiction, and it's been really, really hard. I gotta admit that I don't feel as bad now as it did on day 3 or 4, but I still feel pretty shitty. I actually feel worse today even than I did yesterday. I don't know how that happened, but I woke up today with a huge headache. I also woke up to a tweet from our fellow 99geeker Gorky, the guy who's always commenting on things and hanging around. He was saying that he's been feeling really shitty lately, and he was like, I don't mean to talk about myself, but I've got all these headaches and I feel like ass. I'm just like, dude, it's fine. because I'm gonna turn it back to myself because I feel the exact same way. Like I don't know what you're going through, I don't know what I'm going through, but I think we're both going through similar shit, man. Like I don't know if he's trying to quit smoking, but whatever his issue is, I feel it because I've been feeling just like ass, and today feels particularly like ass, and I don't know how I'm gonna accomplish my writing for release on Sunday. I've written 4 paragraphs so far, and that's with me putting a lot of work into it yesterday. Um, so that sucks. But on the bright side of day 7 without smoking, I don't know if I should slip up or not. No, of course not. No, I gotta stay strong. I gotta be strong. Um, Other than that, I've just been sort of trying to distract myself playing through the Hitman franchise, as I've been saying. Haven't even gotten to the reboot yet because I've been stuck on these crappy old games that really aren't worth going back to. I thought they would get better as they went along. Like one was particularly bad, two was better, and I was like, all right, if they keep getting better from here, I bet the next one's gonna be like actually good. But no, the next one, the third one was actually, in my opinion, was a downgrade from the second game. And then the fourth game is what I'm on now, and so far the tutorial level was not that impressive. I'm not impressed at all, honestly. Just stick with the reboot. I paid a lot of the reboot as far as the elusive targets go. Elusive targets are these special missions that come out only available for 2 weeks, and if you don't beat them in the 2 weeks, they're gone forever. And like these special challenges. Sometimes they even include celebrities. Like for instance, the Sean Bean was in a number of the elusive targets. He was like the unkillable man or something like that, because he just always dies in all his movies. So they're like, no matter how many times you've assassinated him, he just keeps coming back, and we keep killing him. It was fun and silly. But that's it, man. It's not even like if you're afraid that it's just gonna be really serious or something like that, it's surprisingly just a silly good time. Um, anyway, besides that, let's move on. It's honestly, I don't know what else I can tell you about the past week besides that I've been banging my head against the wall trying not to go insane. Moving on to the Geekly Weekly TV rankings. There are 4 shows on the rankings this week. Starting at the bottom with number 4, there's American Gods, which had its season 3 premiere. I give it 2 stars. I didn't think it was great. I loved season 1 of American Gods. I found season 1 of American Gods to be transcendent to the point where I was telling everyone, guys, you gotta watch this show. It's like the best show ever made. Everybody needs to watch American Gods. It's amazing. But then season 2 happened, and have to admit, season 2 was first off, season 2 took like 2 years to come out, and then it comes out and they've recast a bunch of characters, and the writing's not close to as good as it was. I think the show creator left after season 1. Um, and then they keep changing show creators. I think they've changed like 4 times in 3 seasons, so that's insane. And they changed more cast members now, and it feels like it's even worse than it was in season 2. And season 2 was pretty unbearable. So it's sad to see how far the show has fallen because again, season 1 was just incredible and a transcendent experience, and now it's just like I wonder why I'm still watching, honestly. And they even killed my favorite actress, Emily Browning, on that show. I thought she was awesome, and she was the only thing keeping me going. So that really sucks. I don't really look forward to the rest of the season, but I'll give it at least 1 more episode. I don't really see myself dropping it just because, again, season 1 was so good. I want to at least see how it ends, but it's hard to hold on. It really is. Moving on from there to the top 3. Dun, 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 dun. The Stand at number 3 with 4 stars. Literally just watched that before writing this and releasing it onto the interwebs. Um, and I enjoyed it. Honestly, I thought that was maybe the best episode of The Stand we've had yet. So far in the at least in reboot land. I still don't think the show compares to the 1994 original, but there was a lot of great stuff in this episode. We finally got to see Vegas in its sort of glory. so to speak. Um, and we finally got some actual character development and like good character writing, uh, especially from that one character who just sort of at the end of the last episode was like, "I'm in," and it's like, "Who are you?" Like, we've seen you once before, and you killed a dude who was apparently forcing himself upon you for who knows how long. And then that's the only thing we know about you, and then suddenly here you are being like, "I'll be your spy." But they finally gave her a lot of character development. And it was great, and then they killed her, and that was like, oh, wonderful. I saw a lot of comments of people being like, um, I love this woman. I love this woman. She's so cool. She's my new favorite cat. Oh. People getting pissed off. Like, she can't be dead. There's gotta be a way she'll come back. I mean, there's a whole thing about afterlife and stuff and God and shit. So they're all hoping she'll be miraculously resurrected or something like that. I don't think that's how the story plays out. Um, I think they just finally did good character writing because they wanted to make us sad that they killed her, and that feels a little cheap because that's what we've been wanting this whole time, and then they gave it to a character who's now dead. Wonderful, thanks. Um, More of that. If they had been giving us more of that from the beginning, with all the characters, made it longer than however many episodes it is, miniseries, then maybe the show wouldn't be as awful as it is. But this was a pretty decent episode. It was the sort of thing that should have been doing more from the beginning. And you know what? I expected as much, honestly. When I saw how fast it was going through everything, I expected it's just wanted to get to the Vegas stuff. For some weird reason, certain tellings of the story just want to get to the Vegas stuff, and the Vegas stuff is so inconsequential. Like watching the 1994 miniseries, I barely remember anything about the Vegas stuff. It's kind of all in the last sort of hour of the show, and everything is just it's more about the build up. And this thing was more like you could tell from the way it was pushing forward and surging through all the plot points that no, it just wants to get to the Vegas shit. It doesn't really care about everything else. Well, we're there, and it did a good job of it. So congratulations. McNamara was awesome, but honestly, my favorite character was Franny. I thought she was great. She continues to be a badass. I've enjoyed her throughout the whole show. Possibly she's the only reason I'm still watching, really, through some of the worse episodes. But this episode was pretty good. Best one so far. And because there's not a lot on TV right now, it was the third best show this week. Moving on to number two, The Goldbergs, also 4 stars. Show returned with a really good episode. Its best episode in a while. I love the whole Clue dinner party. It was fun. Basically, the whole premise was that Adam watched Clue and he was all like, "This is fun. We should have our own Clue party, a murder mystery event thing." And so Beverly, his mom, invites all her friends over, which was fun because it gave us lots of fun dynamics with her weird and strange adult friends. Um, and that's always a good time. There's great comedy actors. And my favorite was the new woman, the wife of Bill, who the whole time people keep like hitting on her and just being like, it was you, wasn't it? You couldn't take your eyes off her and her gorgeous dress. And she's just in the corner like, oh, wow, guys, tonight's been really good for my self-esteem. Weird, but funny and good. And I also appreciated that both Barry and Beverly weren't quite as stuck to their formulas this week as they usually are. And their formulas weren't the focus of the episodes. Instead, it was more, in Beverly's storyline, it was more her husband. And in Barry's storyline, it was more focused on Erica, who's one of my preferable characters, and her just kind of ruining his education, I guess. Um, anyway, it was a better than usual episode of a show that's been generally going pretty stale. So and again, not a lot on TV right now, so it was the second best show of the week. But the best show of the week this week was Shameless with 4.5 stars. Um, might have even been the best episode of the season yet. Well, that was a whole week ago now. I think I remember anything that happened. Apparently, I enjoyed Lip's plot with his wife's ex-teacher. That's right. Uh, she, you meet like this dude from her past. I didn't even realize it was her ex-teacher or anything. Like he seemed similar-ish age to her, but I guess when she was in high school, he was her teacher, and then they had an affair, and it was just fun the way that she began the episode sort of like people didn't understand, but what we had was, beyond age or whatever. And then and then Lip didn't even really argue. He didn't that's what probably made this, because there was a version of the storyline where Lip gets too involved, um and it could get down a dark path. But instead, he just said like, okay, and lets things happen. Where the teacher comes over with his new fiance, and the fiance's embraces, and just watching Lip's wife slowly change her mind about this guy over the course of the episode was fantastic and too much fun. Um, Debbie's competition with V was also a fantastic storyline. Carl's storyline with his partner, he loved her at first. Now she's a huge bigot. That was fun. Not always fun. It was powerful as well when she used her authority to take advantage of that trans woman. And then at the end of the episode, Carl brought back the trans woman's wig, and it was a sweet moment. Um, the main storyline involving the Malkoviches was also fantastic, with them moving in next door, and now everyone's afraid of them because they're a bunch of Nazis, and that's horrifying. Really timely, I feel like. This was a great episode. And we had another Frank memory part this episode where he forgot something that had happened like half an hour ago, and everybody's just like, "What are you talking about?" And then he gets so confused, and it's like, "Uh-oh, this is the final season. I think they're gonna kill Frank or something, or give him dementia or Alzheimer's or something, something to do with like his drug use and all that." Somebody was talking about there's alcoholic dementia, so alcohol long-term alcohol induced dementia that can people can get, that everybody's saying this looks like that. So I think they're slowly kind of putting in hints that they're kind of probably end on something horrible happening with Frank, and that'll be fun. And that's the TV ranking. So bum ba dun 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 da. Shameless makes the top spot, which is it's only gonna have one more season left to do that. Not even a full season now. Like maybe half of it. I don't even know how many episodes it has left, but that's all that is left of the show, and then it's over for good. So enjoy that top spot while you can. And who knows, next week maybe it'll be replaced by WandaVision, which is actually out right now. I could be watching it right now instead of doing this. But instead I'm here doing this. I hope you're appreciative. Very appreciative. You can show me how appreciative later. God, that sounded creepy. Moving on. Geekly news headlines. This is where we talk about the news. And all the other creepy things going on around the world by people who aren't me. Starting at the top, this one is not fun. Police officer dies following pro-Trump riot at the Capitol. It was interesting when the riot ended and people were like, one person dead, and then that quickly escalated to four people dead, and then five people dead. This article was released January 8th, 2021 by David Gilbert on Vice.com, and it is making the announcement that a fifth person did in fact die from the riots. And the reason why it took a while for us to realize that is because not everyone died during the riots. Like they were inflicted with something that they then died later, such as somebody getting shot and then dying later. This person specifically sustained injuries while physically engaging with protesters during Wednesday's riot. Brian Sicknick initially returned to his division office after the attack, but subsequently collapsed, which is horrifying. So he thought he was okay. He was like, I'm cool. And then he was just like, having a beer with his buddies or doing the paperwork and just collapsed on the It was like, what the fuck? And he was taken to the hospital and succumbed to his injuries. And that was the fifth person to die from this attack that QAnon supporters and everyone did on the Capitol, which is horrifying. Next, QAnon doesn't think Trump conceded. I'm sure they don't. I'm sure he doesn't either. This is from January 8th, 2021 by David Gilbert again on Vice.com. It was the moment QAnon supporters had hoped would never come. On Thursday night, a video posted to Twitter, President Donald Trump finally conceded the presidential election to Joe Biden. But rather than reacting with anger and disillusionment, QAnon supporters did what they always do when things don't go their way. They came up with their own interpretation. That sounds about right. In QAnon's world, Trump's message was not a concession speech, but a signal that everything's going according to plan and that soon we'll see a new Trump administration, with disgraced former National Security Advisor and major QAnon figure Michael Flynn as his vice president. People really live in a cuckoo world. Lots and lots of people really live in a cuckoo world. The unwillingness to admit that Trump will leave office in 2 weeks' time means that QAnon supporters will continue to push conspiracies around election fraud and a stolen election, just as they did in the lead up to the violent insurrection on the Capitol on Wednesday, where QAnon supporters led the charge. In a video posted to his recently unlocked Twitter account on Thursday night, which, from what I know, became locked again or is locked for good, or I'm not sure. Trump made his first public declaration that he would leave office on January 20th. Yes, so definitely after this, his Twitter account was banned for good. I remember that happening. I didn't make it up. First, Trump condemned those who attacked the Capitol, even though they did so at his urging. I'd like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I'm outraged by the violence and the lawlessness and mayhem. Sorry, I wasn't doing the voice. My mistake, he said. Then he sort of admitted defeat. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. Yes, I remember people being like, he didn't say who the new administration would be. I actually saw people saying that. Like, people are so ridiculous. But just like all events that don't fit with QAnon's wild conspiracies and predictions, the real meaning of Trump's words were quickly twisted to suit the needs of QAnon believers. On a hate-filled social network Gab, a hugely influential QAnon grifter who calls himself Neon Revolt decoded Trump's video for their almost 400,000 followers. They claimed Trump's condemnation of violence was actually condemnation of Antifa, the anti-fascist group, because they do violence, so he was talking about them and others like them who are trying to blame for Wednesday's attack. And Neon Revolt also said that since Trump didn't specifically mention Biden by name, the new administration he was talking about was Trump's own second term. Here's the actual tweet, and this one makes me laugh. The context, people, he says. Remember the context before watching this. Condemning violence equals condemning Antifa. I mean, they're just fucking detectives. Trump knew about the infiltration, even tweeting it the day before the rally. Yes, they were infiltrated by Antifa, which is such bullshit. Oh my god. New administration does not equal the Biden administration. It could just as easily mean a Trump-Flynn administration, for instance. Like what? Such mental gymnastics were repeated almost verbatim by other high-profile QAnon accounts, including Joe M. on Parler, which, by the way, also has been taken down since this article. The right-wing alternative to Twitter. On Twitter, Major Patriot, who has 310,000 followers, boosted the same conspiracy. My thoughts on President Trump's video, he says, it was not a concession speech. There was no mention of Biden. No, I'd like to congratulate him on a hard-fought campaign. What new administration is he referring to that will be inaugurated on the 20th? Everybody seems to think that because he didn't mention Biden by name, he was secretly giving some weird, secret, hidden message. And as is normal for any Trump video that doesn't neatly align with QAnon's predictions, followers are promoting the idea that the whole video is fake. So, They're saying that it has hidden messages, and then they're also saying that it's completely faked by us. What? It's a deep fake manufactured by Trump's shadowy enemies. They're so shadowy. Look how shadowy I am. Ooh. While many QAnon accounts are holding the line and believing Trump will still emerge victorious on January 20th, there were some supporters who felt the video was a betrayal. I threw up into my mouth watching this, one commentator on the rabidly pro-Trump forum The Donald said, while another said, Trump stabbed us in the back. Good. But because a significant group of QAnon influencers and their supporters believe this is all part of the plan, it increases the chances that Washington could witness a repeat of the violent scenes it saw this week. QAnon has been central in fomenting the violence that played out on Capitol Hill this week. Figures like Flynn, pro-Trump lawyers Sidney Powell, and L. Lynn Wood, and aide-con administrator Ron Watkins have all been embraced by the Trump administration and have had their racist conspiracy theories about election fraud boosted by the president's Twitter account. I mean, it's quite impressive the way that it's like one big circle of bullshit, and they just feed into each other. It's almost like, you know what it is? It's a human centipede of bullshit. That's what the entire far right uh, wing is. It's just a human centipede of bullshit. Now QAnon is embracing a new deadline, January 20th, when Joe Biden will be inaugurated as the 46th President of the United States, and extremist groups are already organizing another protest march in DC on that day. In fact, I have heard recently it's been talked about how they want to do march before and after instead because apparently they're bringing in a whole lot of um, um, troops or police or whatever for officers for the inauguration. Thank God. Let's hope that nothing bad happens. Fingers crossed. And QAnon believers think Trump was hinting at what will happen that day with the final line in his video, "Our incredible journey is only just beginning," Trump said. Oh, dear Lord. Yeah, that sounds painful and scary. 5 people arrested at Black Lives Matter protests talk about policing and the Capitol riot. This is another story by Vice.com on January 8th, 2021 by Rina Sultan. On January 6th, the world watched as white supremacists bearing Nazi and Confederate flags stormed the Capitol building with little resistance from police, who appeared to help insurrectionists both into and out of the building. And there's footage of the police opening the gates, which we've showed before. This stood in stark contrast to the summer of 2020 when the police across the country, including in Washington, D.C., tear gassed, pepper sprayed, beat, and even ran over protesters demanding justice for black people killed by law enforcement. Vice spoke to 5 people who were arrested during the uprisings for Black Lives and against police violence the summer of 2020 about their experiences and about their reactions to the January 6th raid on the Capitol. And these are short sort of snippets of interviews. This one's from Toy Slaughter 38, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Since protests began in Pittsburgh on May 30th, I have been out and active, stomping the pavement to fight for equal rights. I have been kettled and assaulted. Kettled? What is kettled? What is kettled? Of the police to confine a group of demonstrators or protesters to a small area as a method of crowd control. Well, my mind went to something worse. So I've been kettled and assaulted, tear gassed, beaten with wooden batons, shot at with rubber bullets, and maced for peacefully protesting the injustice and systematic racism of my people. When the police murdered George Floyd, the whole of us protesting were fed up with the world seemingly being complacent with this being a normal occurrence. Fuck that. We gathered and rallied and petitioned our local government, did everything according to what they said was lawful. One of the days of our protests, we were kettled and forced by police into a dark park, where the police then told us that our being in the park was being unlawful as it was closed. They proceeded to mace and shoot non-lethal but still painful rounds at us. That's crazy. Over the summer, I had to turn myself in 3 times and I was arrested twice because I protested. They charged me with intent to riot and disorderly conduct at first, but then kept adding new charges or doubling down on old charges, which opened up active warrants for my arrest. And I can't imagine this woman. Was it even a woman? Toy Sauter. Yeah, I think that's her. Maybe. Um, but like it's not like they're rich, right? So like, how can they even afford being arrested 5 times? That I would be fucked if I was arrested 5 times. I would be on the street and starving and dead. That would be the end of my life. So like, can't imagine what she's gone through. I really can't. Which I mean, we can try though because she's telling us. Where was I on this? I've had to pay a lawyer multiple times and haven't even had my preliminary hearing yet. Even when I turn myself in, I'm there no less than 16 hours, which is terrible for me because I get out feeling like I'm dying of thirst because I'm not drinking water from a toilet. They give you a bag lunch with 2 stale cookies, a warm orange drink that makes your mouth so dry, and 2 pieces of bread with a thin slice of lunch meat. I'm a vegetarian. Since I'm facing, meanwhile, oh, I wonder if did I do that story? There was this one story. If not, I'll just tell you about it later. Should I tell you about it now? There's this one story. Okay, do you remember the pictures of the Viking guy? The guy with the horns and the face paint and the gross beard and he's topless and he's got tattoos and shit. It's disgusting and makes you want to throw up in your mouth. Um, and apparently he's been arrested now. Great. But apparently he calls himself a shaman, all right? And certain Aboriginal tribes are offended by the idea of him calling himself a shaman. He says because he lived the shaman life for however long and did shamany things, he's now a shaman. And because he's a shaman, he needs special shamany food. And the prisons were like, okay, we're gonna have to give him his shamany food. So they're giving him his chamois food, his special organic food, because he can only eat special organic foods, and his lawyers fought for that. And even though his Chamonix religion, at least the way he practices it, is made up, and even people of tribes and things who have shamans that they look up to are like, no, this dude's not a shaman. They're like, first off, he calls himself a shaman. That's not something shamans usually do. Usually, other people call them shamans. They don't call themselves shamans. Um, so I think there was an article about that. We might get to that at some point. But so I find that hilarious that this dude who made up his own goddamn religion and calls himself a shaman while he walks around in fur skins and a Viking helmet is given whatever the fuck he asked for because he asked for it. And yet, um, this woman is an actual vegetarian and still was forced to eat meat. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Since I'm facing 17 charges for peacefully protesting, I was completely dumbfounded watching the events of January 6th unfold. 17 charges. I can't believe that I'm facing felonies and a bunch of bogus summaries for having cute little parades in the street where we danced, sang, and screamed "fuck the police." We have been met by riot cops during marches led by children. We didn't set anything on fire. We didn't bust down doors. We didn't physically harm anyone or any property. Still, I can no longer find gainful employment due to the charges I'm still facing, and they keep dragging the case out. They've combined my court date with other activists to make scheduling even harder. Our preliminary hearing has been pushed back at least 4 times, and with them dragging it out like this, it makes it harder to organize and march. And that's just one person. We have more people to hear their stories. This is Jordan, 24, Columbus, Ohio. On June 23rd, the day I was arrested, I had already protested downtown for multiple days in a row. The same group of cops monitored and harassed us throughout, so they knew our names and faces. I knew from other people that police were targeting organizers that week for arrests. The night before I was arrested, a handful of cops pointed me and another organizer out and referred to us by name, making it clear that he knew who we were. That is scary. They were noticeably more aggressive and abrasive that night because of our chants asking for justice. The following day, at dusk, I joined the protest. When I got there, I noticed cops escalating a tense situation with protesters on the sidewalk, and I started live streaming it. One of the officers who pointed me out the day before walked over to me and demanded I get out of the street. The signal for the crosswalk was green, so I wasn't breaking any laws, but he continued to get angrier. When the signal to walk was counting down from 10, I turned to return to the sidewalk. Behind me, I heard him yell to the other cops, "Get her, get her, get her." 5 to 7 cops grabbed me. They kicked in behind my knees so that I fell to the ground, and then I was picked up and slammed against a cruiser that I was held in for hours. I was charged with failure to comply and pedestrian and roadway jaywalking, and was threatened with an officer assault charge. After fingerprinting me, they asked me questions about organizing. When I refused to answer, they gave me a court date and released me. Local legal observers were able to put me in touch with National Lawyers Guild lawyers, and one of them represented me pro bono. To secure counsel, it took about 3 weeks of communicating and getting connected to people. With the help of my great lawyer, my charges were dropped, but many other organizers in Columbus are still fighting in unjust charges. It is clear from my arrest report that this was an intimidation tactic, because they were trying to intimidate her into telling them about how she was organizing. This is fucked. They treated these people like criminals, and as they keep pointing out, all they were doing was dancing in the street and shit and marching, and yet the people who were storming the Capitol just got like high fives and like selfies and shit. Fucked up. Fucked up. The police's actions on January 6th show how complicit they are in upholding white supremacy. They were taking selfies and shaking hands with white supremacists breaking into the Capitol, while my friends and I were maced, tear gassed, beaten, shot at with wooden and rubber bullets, arrested, and traumatized by the brutality we experienced and continue to live with. Their lack of action shows very clearly that the thin blue line exists to reinforce the blatant caste system we live in. Do you understand now why I'm reading this? Like, I read this and I was like, I have to read this out loud on a podcast because like these are very important perspectives. Jamie, 22, La Jolla, California. I was protesting in La Mesa, California on May 30th in response to the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. We marched throughout the city until 6 p.m. when we gathered around the local police precinct. The crowd was chanting with their hands up when tear gas canisters were deployed and officers in full riot gear began pouring out of the building. At that point, unable to see almost anything because of the tear gas, I tried to run away and was hit by a rubber bullet. Police moved into the crowd of fleeing protesters, and as I was tackled by 2 officers who placed me in zip-tie wrist restraints, they led me to a police car where I sat for what I can only estimate was an hour. I received no medical attention despite having trouble breathing from the tear gas and bleeding from the rubber bullet wound in my side. 2 officers got into the car and drove me to the El Cajun Police Department precinct. I was strip searched and placed in a holding cell. An officer informed me I was being charged with vandalism and resisting arrest, and Mirandized me. They removed me from the holding cell and led me to a small room where I was questioned about my involvement with protest organizers, of which I had none. I told them I was there as passive observer. So this is the second person saying that they were asked about how they were being organized. Like, these people are so afraid of this Antifa organization. That's not even really a thing. Like, people are just like, hey, let's protest. And everybody's like, yeah, let's do it. And then we all get together and do it. And then they're like, it's an organized terrorism. Ah. Meanwhile, the right wing are absolutely being like, no, we're going to do violent shit on this day. We're going to take over the government. And the police are like, we're gonna allow that to happen. That sounds reasonable. The officers interrogating me were accommodating of my injuries. I received basic medical treatment for the wound on my torso finally, as I was being held. After they finished the questioning, they left the room for about 20 minutes. After they came back, I was told I was free to go. I was out of the building by 10 p.m. So again, it was an intimidation tactic. I believe the response by police at the Capitol building was irresponsible and compromised national security, and that they allowed a violent mob to swarm a federal building because that mob was majority white. See, like, people, the right-wing people keep pointing an equivalency between the two, but there is no equivalency because one group was marching in the street and the other group attacked a government building with government people inside who were then threatened. There were bombs. Like, it's insane. Ty Hobson Powell, 25, Washington, D.C. Look at this guy. He looks good in a suit. Very good indeed. Smart looking man. Back in August, I was arrested in Louisville, Kentucky for peacefully protesting in solidarity with Until Freedom to call for justice for Breonna Taylor. We simply marched in the streets. Within 20 minutes, we were met by officers in riot gear who surrounded us and told us that we were about to be arrested. I was one of 65 arrested, and I was held for over 10 hours before being released on my own recognizance. I came out to jail support coordinated by Until Freedom and was greeted with a meal and warm welcomes from others who had been released prior or had never been arrested. I have a court hearing on Inauguration Day to answer to the charges. So I mean, a lot of these people still haven't even been heard yet and don't even know what's going to happen with like their charges and shit. With the assistance of Until Freedom, thank God people like them exist. I have retained counsel to represent me so that I don't have to attend the proceedings in person. Seeing white supremacists storm the Capitol without consequence reminded me of work that remains unfinished. On July 4th, a group I am a part of, Concerned Citizens DC, unveiled a set of policy proposals called Bill of Rights for a New America, which is designed to act as guidance for the future we hope to forward for America. We made our announcement at the Capitol. We were met with barricades and armed police lines. We have led other peaceful protests in DC where police responded with tear gas, rubber bullets, mace, assaults, and arrests. Seeing white supremacists loyal to Trump stage a coup attempt without similar repercussions was extremely frustrating. It underscores that policing works on an inconsistent basis instead of being equitably administered to all communities. It's more apparent than ever that we have to revisit public safety so that black and brown protesters may be treated with the same spirit of understanding that allowed the vast majority of insurrectionists to walk away from vandalizing the U.S. Capitol unharmed. This is Man E. I don't know if that's his name or not. 31 Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was arrested on May 30th in downtown Pittsburgh at a protest in response to police violence. There was a heavy police presence at the protest throughout the day, like helicopters, armored vehicles, and officers in full military gear. I'm sorry, what? I lost control of that sentence. There was a heavy police presence at the protest throughout the day, like helicopters, armored vehicles, and officers in full military gear. They became increasingly aggressive as the day went on. Our mayor had imposed a curfew that most protesters abided by, but I was among the few who remained at the protest after dark. The murder of George Floyd impacted me because of my own experience with police brutality, including one occasion where I was choked violently. Pittsburghers also recently witnessed a police officer acquitted after murdering a young man named Antoine Rose II, so some, like me, felt compelled to persist with the protest despite the curfew. That night, I was among a group of roughly 20 people who were kettled into a narrow alleyway by SWAT officers. Initially, 2 canisters of tear gas were shot at us, forcing us to withdraw into the alley while a police vehicle blocked our rear exit. A second police vehicle blocked the opposite end of the alley. Then officers on both sides fired multiple canisters at us while we had no way to disperse. One struck a comrade of mine in the back. We were unable to see and breathe as we followed the officers' voices ordering us onto the ground. An officer pressed her knee onto my back as I was handcuffed. We were all taken to the Allegheny County Jail. Most of the 45 protesters who were arrested that night were given the same 2 charges of disorderly conduct and failure to disperse. Upon entering the jail, my forehead was scanned for a fever and I was given a mask and flip-flops to wear. I was placed in multiple holding cells with fellow inmates up to 9, where we were not required to wear our masks, so COVID was definitely a concern. We were arraigned, photographed, and fingerprinted individually before being allowed to make an initial phone call, which was roughly 10 hours after the arrest. Although my cash bail of 10% of $2,000, $200, thank God that's like, I've heard so much worse than that before, was paid expeditiously by the Bukit Bail Fund of Pittsburgh. Again, thank God people like that exist. Allegheny County can hold you up to 48 hours after bail is paid. I was released 12 hours later. Correction officers gave me no information about the process, and I was only updated by my wife over the phone. Upon my release, I was greeted by a jail support organization called Jailbreak PGH, who helped me secure transportation home. So I mean, imagine if he didn't have other people who were looking out for him. Like, I just keep thinking, like, I would be fucked. One of my nightmares is going to prison. It really is. Like, I'm horribly afraid of that. In my opinion, it's the same thing as being murdered. They're taking your life away. They're taking years of your life away. They might as well just kill you. It's my nightmare. What stood out about this experience was the arrest itself, which was traumatizing. In that alleyway, unable to see or breathe, and hearing the screams of both scared protesters and aggressive police officers, some of us literally thought we were gonna die. That's not an experience that will ever leave us, but it's one I would gladly experience again while standing up for social justice. Disorderly conduct is a summary offense, a minor crime, and failure to disperse is a misdemeanor offense, which is less serious than a felony. The response of law enforcement was completely disproportionate to what we were accused of. Watching what transpired in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, I see another disproportionate response. I'm again reminded of the two Americas that exist. One where black people get murdered in their sleep by police officers, and one where white insurrectionists take selfies with police officers. That was a great way to end that. Anyway, shitty. That's how the world is. Jake and Jelly, QAnon shaman, the guy we were just talking about. We love talking about this guy. Regrets nothing, apparently. No, I'm not worried at all, says Angeli about being arrested in an interview with Vice News. This is by Kaylee Chella and Ben McCook, ViceNews.com story on January 8th, 2021. And this is the dude we've been talking about. Everybody knows him all too well. A bare-chested man, adorned with face paint, a fur coat, and a Viking horned headdress, was lording over one of the highest chambers of American political power. The images made clear that Wednesday afternoon's coup attempt was more than an attempt to try at a government takeover. It was self-consciously a spectacle. The man dubbed the QAnon shaman is a 32-year-old Arizona native, Jake Angeli, a now infamous American icon and the face of the would-be QAnon coup who is wanted by law enforcement. No, I'm not worried at all, said Angeli in an interview with Vice News about the prospect of being arrested. He said he had personally reached out to the FBI. I contacted the FBI, he said. The investigator just wanted to know what the scoop was. Well, he will eventually be arrested, I'm pretty sure. Angeli, who is on his way back home to Arizona, said he has a meeting with agents in the works. On Wednesday, when a mob of thousands stormed Capitol Hill, among them neo-Nazi conspiracists and all manner of far-right extremists, Angeli was right in the thick of the invaders who illegally and violently entered Congress, sending senators and congresspeople into hiding. The day's violence would claim the lives of at least 5 people, including a woman who was shot by police entering Congress and a police officer who was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. Jesus Christ. But despite the bloodshed and widespread national shame over this week's violence in Washington, D.C., Angeli regrets nothing. I'm quite proud of my participation, he said. I'd like to think I was an observer of history being made right in front of me. No, you were the history, man. Like, you were the face of the history. Ay, ay, ay. I'm not saying that in a good way. For the record, I'm not trying to praise this man. On Thursday night, President Trump, who directed, though I am sure he would take much joy in hearing that. On Thursday night, President Trump, who directed his followers' attempt to prevent Congress from validating the election winner, because I mean, who wouldn't looking like that? I'm just saying. Where was I? President Trump, who directed his followers' attempt to prevent Congress from validating the election when President-elect Joe Biden finally conceded. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th, said the president in a televised address. As for Angeli, he plans on being there in the nation's capital for Biden's inauguration on January 20th, which has already been earmarked by far-right extremists as a date of protest. I would certainly like to be there, he said. I'm making plans to go, but everything is in the making. And I mean, again, I'm pretty sure he's been arrested since then. Donald Trump has finally earned a permaban on Twitter. This is a story not on Vice.com. This is also January 8th, 2021. That's how you write a date, by the way, Vice.com, if you're watching, but you're not. Donald Trump has finally earned a permaban from Twitter. Twitter banned Trump's account due to the risk of further incitement of violence, says Kate Cox on arstechnica.com. Twitter has permanently suspended President Donald Trump's personal Twitter account due to repeated incitement of violence, the company announced Friday night. After a close review of recent tweets from the real Donald Trump account and the context around them, specifically how they're being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence, Twitter said in a company blog post this evening. On Wednesday, in the wake of the insurrectionist violence at the U.S. Capitol, Twitter gave Trump a 12-hour suspension and required him to delete 3 tweets that it saw as continuing to promote, endorse, or glorify the violent event. In its explanation, I need a water break. Water break. In its explanation, Twitter cited 2 of its tweets Trump posted Wednesday and said that the messages must be read in the context of broader events in the country and the ways in which the president's statements can be mobilized by different audiences, including to incite violence, as well as in the context of the pattern of behavior from this account in the recent weeks. The 12-hour ban expired late Thursday, and on Friday morning, Trump returned to the platform to tweet, "The 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America's first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form." In context, Twitter determined that message once again comprises a call to violence, and, in short, Trump broke that rule one too many times and earned the perma boot. This is at least the 4th platform ban Donald Trump has earned since Wednesday. Twitch, Snapchat, and Facebook, including Instagram, have all also suspended Trump indefinitely. Twitter earlier today also suspended the accounts of several prominent Trump supporters, including Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell, as part of a push to deplatform QAnon. An update at 8:40 p.m. on that day. Twitter said it would delete any attempts by Trump to circumvent this ban, and the company seems to have meant it. Trump took to the official presidential Twitter account POTUS a little before 8:30 p.m. to complain about his ban. The thread, as shown in a screenshot below, was deleted within a few minutes. But they do include it, so let's read it, because why not? I kind of want to hear it. All right. As I've been saying for a long time, Twitter has gone further and further in banning free speech, and tonight Twitter employees have coordinated with the Democrats and the radical left in removing my account from their platform to silence me and you, the 75 million great. Okay. Okay. He keeps going, great, the 75 million great, patriots who voted for me. Twitter may be a private company, but without the government's gift of Section 230, they would not exist for long. I predicted this would happen. We have been negotiating with various other sites, and they will have big announcements soon. What sites? I'm curious to hear what that's about. While we also look at the possibilities of building out our own platform in the near future, good luck with that. We will not be silenced. Twitter is not about free speech. I mean, yes, they have nothing to do with each other. They are all about promoting a radical left platform where some of the most, for so long it's been about promoting radical right platform. So finally, something's being done. Where some of the most vicious people in the world are allowed to speak freely. The most vicious people. Finally one of them has been silenced. So hooray for that. And that's the end of this article. But that was fun, wasn't it? Moving on from there. Amazon cuts off part. See, this is fun. It just keeps going. This is another Ars Technica story. This is on January 9th, 2021 at 9:46 p.m. It has 2,000 comments. The other one had only 900 comments. What are people saying? Huh? What are people saying? I don't know. Who cares? Anyway, Amazon cuts off Parler's web hosting following Apple Google bans. The app will need to find new web hosting by Sunday or go offline. I've heard it's gone offline already. Amazon Web Services is suspending Parler's access to its hosting services at the end of the weekend, potentially driving the service offline unless it can find a new provider. Because Parler cannot comply with our terms of service and poses a very real risk to public safety. We plan to suspend Parlay's account effective Sunday, January 10th at 11:59 p.m. So even the platforms that Trump could have gone to, like Parler, is also being shut down now. The email from AWS to Parler cites several examples of violent and threatening posts made in recent days, including threats to systematically assassinate liberal leaders, liberal activists, BLM leaders and supporters, and others. Given the unfortunate events that transpired this past week in Washington, D.C., there is serious risk that this type of content will further incite violence and message ads. And let's not forget now that there has been zero assassination attempts on President Trump. Zero assassination attempts. And yet they try to do some sort of weird equivalency thing where apparently there's some kind of where the left is more violent and more vicious, as Trump was putting it, than the right, which is complete bullshit, as we can clearly see. Sorry, that was not in the article. That was just me losing my mind for a second. Parler launched in 2018 as a free speech alternative to Twitter and Facebook. Good luck with that. Through 2019 and 2020, it drew a number of conservative right-wing and far-right fringe users. Usage has dramatically increased in the past few days in the wake of Wednesday's events at the U.S. Capitol and President Donald Trump's subsequent total ban from Twitter and other platforms. That increased traffic has also brought increased threats of violence to the platform, which technology companies across the board seem to be taking more seriously after this week. And no wonder, as insurrectionists who attacked the Capitol made widespread use of social media to plan, carry out, and brag about their activity. Parler, however, has not articulated a clear plan for dealing with violent threats on its platform. As Amazon wrote, it's clear that Parler does not have an effective process to comply with the AWS terms of service. It also seems that Parler is still trying to determine its position on content moderation. You remove some violent content when contacted by us or others, but not always with urgency. Your CEO recently stated publicly that he doesn't feel responsible for any of this, and neither should the platform. This morning you shared that you have a plan to more proactively moderate violent content, but the plan to do so manually with volunteers. It's our view that this nascent plan to use volunteers to promptly identify and remove dangerous content will not work in light of the rapidly growing number of violent posts. Apple also removed Parler from its iOS App Store earlier today, citing similar concerns. Parler has not upheld its commitment to moderate and remove harmful or dangerous content encouraging violence and illegal activity, and is not in compliance with the App Store review guidelines, Apple wrote. Your app will be removed from the App Store until we receive an update that is compliant with the App Store review guidelines and have demonstrated your ability to effectively moderate and filter the dangerous content and harmful content on your service. Google already booted Parler from its App Store on Friday, also citing the prevalence of explicitly violent content left up on the platform. Interesting. Fascinating, even. Twitter removes Chinese tweet claiming Uyghurs were baby-making machines, so it's not just American politics that they're stepping in on. Good. Silence China. This is from January 10th, 2021. On Vice.com. The tweet claimed that China's re-education program somehow emancipated Uyghur women. Twitter has removed a tweet by the Chinese embassy in Washington that claimed Uyghur women had been emancipated by the Chinese Communist Party's anti-extremist policies in the Xinjiang region, where an estimated 1 million members of the Turkic Muslim minority are being detained in prison-like re-education centers. The tweet, which was taken down over the weekend following criticism from tens of thousands of Twitter users, also suggested that Uyghur women were baby-making machines, paraphrasing an article in state-run newspaper China Daily that claimed that decreases in Xinjiang's birth rate and natural population growth rate were the result of the eradication of religious extremism. Studies show that in the process of eradicating extremism, the minds of Uyghur women in Xinjiang were emancipated and gender equality and reproductive health were promoted, making them no longer baby-making machines. Oh my god. The fuck? They are more confident and independent. What? The fuck? Fuck me. That is one of the most fucked up things I've ever heard in my life. Last year, an investigation by the Associated Press found that the Chinese government, in an attempt to curb birth rates and population amongst Uyghurs and other minorities, basically, You know how Trump doesn't like Mexicans and he doesn't like Muslims, I assume, and blah 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 blah. Imagine if he was like, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take away all their ability to have babies, and then in the future there will be less Mexicans and less Muslims. That's exactly what China is doing to these people. And I've heard stories that that is kind of exactly what they did to a number of people detained at the Mexican border as well under the Trump administration. So yeah, keep that in mind. This is honestly one of the most monstrous things I can imagine. I need to reread the sentence though, and I don't want to, but I didn't finish it, so I have to reread it. Last year, an investigation by the Associated Press found that the Chinese government, in an attempt to curb birth rates and population among Uyghurs and minorities, forced large numbers of women in Yin to undergo sterilization and abortion procedures. Police raided the homes of Uyghur men and women, and those who were found to have three or more children were sent to detention camps unless they paid huge fines. Which, oh my god, that just made my headache worse. Ugh. Following interviews with 30 ex-detainees, family members, and former detention camp instructors, the Associated Press observed what they described as a climate of terror around having children and cited statistics showing that birth rates in Yin plunged 24% in 2019, compared to just 4.2% nationwide. Some experts have labeled the population control measures a form of demographic genocide. Twitter declared that Chinese embassy tweet violated the Twitter rules, but did not provide further details. It comes just days after the social media company permanently banned US President Donald Trump from the platform, citing the risk of further incitement of violence following raids on the US Capitol last week. Thank God that article wasn't longer than that because that was a horrible thing to read. And that's horrible to hear, but like also I was talked to talked to. I was grocery shopping the other day, and this old lady was waiting at the bus stop with me. And besides going on about how she wears her mask because it's a law, but only because of that, and she doesn't think it's right to worry about things like diseases and stuff, and blah 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 blah. But she also went on about how she doesn't listen to the news because the way we started talking about all this because she was like, "Hey, hello, how are you doing?" Or something like somehow we were pleasantly standing side by side. I was not trying not to be impolite, and so we got to pleasantries and asking each other how we were doing, and I was just like, fine, whatever, surviving day to day. And she was like, well, I'm always happy and I'm really happy and you should be happier and like me. And you need to stop watching the news. I bet that's your problem. You watch too much news. And if you just watch less news, well, then you'd be a happier person. It's like, cool, but then I'd also be ignorant to all the crazy shit that's going on in the world. And then when you're ignorant to all the crazy shit, that's how shit like QAnon happens, right? That's like shit like people putting their faith behind Donald Trump because they don't even like pay attention to all the thousands of horrible things he does every single day, and like they don't fathom it. And then when you tell them about it, they think you're being hysterical or making it up, and it's like we've seen it because we've been paying attention, but these people are just fucking out there being Looney Tunes. Anyway, selfish idiocy. Infected lawmaker blasts Republicans for bunkering maskless. This is an Ars Technica story. I'm scratching my nose with a Kleenex because it's itchy. Drinking some water. Water break. Do 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 do. Water break. This is a story on Ars Technica by Beth Moll on January 12th, 2021, 11:15 a.m. Though it was updated apparently. There is apparently a third representative, Brad Schneider, who announced Tuesday morning that he too has tested positive for COVID-19 after sheltering with maskless Republican colleagues. In a statement, Schneider said that during the insurrection, he was forced to spend several hours in a secure but confined location with dozens of other members of Congress, and several Republican lawmakers in the room adamantly refused to wear a mask. Schneider reported that so far he has not experienced symptoms but was nevertheless concerned. Today I am now in strict isolation, worried that I have risked my wife's health and angry at the selfishness and arrogance of the anti-maskers who put their own contempt and disregard for decency ahead of health and safety of their colleagues and our staff, he said. Wearing a mask is not a political statement, it is public health guidance, common courtesy, and simply what should be expected of old, decent people. Like Representative Jayapal before him, he too called for maskless lawmakers be sanctioned and immediately removed from the House floor. I agree. I think that should happen. And let's not forget something. Even after people rioted and striked and invaded the Capitol building and did all the crazy things that they did, still over 100 Republican members of the House voted to have the election overturned and Trump remain president. Over 100 members of the House, all Republican, did that. So, like, there is clearly a lot of very toxic elements in that House right now. And that's something we need to consider. And I honestly think they should all go. But that's just me. I'm not even American, so what do I know? Moving on to the original story. A second lawmaker announced that she has tested positive for COVID-19 days after bunkering with Republican colleagues who recklessly and cruelly refused to wear a mask amid the attack on the Capitol building. Representative Pramila Jayapal, a Democrat from Washington, revealed her positive test late Monday in a scathing statement linking her infection to the events of January 6th and blasting her colleagues across the aisle for putting others' health at risk. Too many Republicans have refused to take this pandemic and virus seriously, and in doing so, they endanger everyone around them. Only hours after President Trump incited a deadly assault on our capital, our country, and our democracy, many Republicans still refuse to take the bare minimum COVID-19 precaution and simply wear a damn mask in a crowded room during a pandemic, creating a super spreader event on top of a domestic terrorist attack, Jayapal said in the statement. During the attack, Jayapal is believed to have been in the now infamous secured room where scores of lawmakers and their staff huddled for safety. Video from the room, where some lawmakers sheltered for hours, showed multiple Republican lawmakers and staff sitting maskless amid the crowd and refusing to put on masks offered by Democratic colleague Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester. What fucking assholes. They should be fired. They should. Maskless Republicans included Representative Andy Biggs, Michael Cloud, Mark Wayne Mullen, and Scott Perry. According to other reports, Representatives Mo Brooks, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Doug LaMalfa were also not wearing masks for extended periods of time. Marjorie Taylor Greene, by the way, I recently read an article, I can't remember if it's going to be included later on here, but she recently came out saying something that was along the lines of, they're impeaching Trump again? Well, guess what? As soon as Biden becomes president, I'm going to file an article of impeachment against him because we're not going to stand for a liberal president, is what she said in a statement to the press, which is absolutely absurd. On Sunday, so remember that name, Marjorie Taylor Greene, as a fucking Looney Tunes woman who doesn't deserve to be a politician. On Sunday, the attending physician to Congress, Brian Monahan, sent an alert to lawmakers warning them that they may have been exposed to the pandemic coronavirus while huddled in the room. This is no joke. Jayapal is the second member of Congress to test positive after sheltering in the room. On Monday, Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman announced that she had tested positive and was in isolation. According to a statement released by her office, Watson Coleman believes she was exposed during a protective isolation in the U.S. Capitol building as a result of insurrectionist riots, and noted in a tweet that she sheltered with several colleagues who refused to wear masks. Oh my God. This next paragraph makes this worse by like 1,000. Coleman, a 75-year-old cancer survivor. That means her odds of like suffering severely from COVID are extreme. And this is because of Republicans who refused to wear masks. How are they allowed to continue working? Like, how have they not been fired? They should be escorted away by police. This is murder. Literal murder. She says that she is in good spirits and was only suffering mild cold-like symptoms so far. Jayapal did not say if she was experiencing symptoms, but said in the statement that while she is in isolation, she will continue to work to the best of my ability. According to reporting by the New York Times, many House Democrats are worried about Representative Watson Coleman and angry about how she is believed to have been infected. In a private caucus call with House Democrats, Speaker Nancy Pelosi reportedly acknowledged that their mask enforcement efforts were not working and suggested having Capitol Police enforce mask wearing. Jayapal took it a step further in her statement, saying, I am also calling for serious fines to be immediately levied on every single member who refuses to wear a mask in the Capitol. Additionally, any member who refuses to wear a mask should be immediately removed from the floor by Sergeant-at-Arms. I agree. This is not a joke. Our lives and our livelihood are at risk, and anyone who refuses to wear a mask should be fully held accountable for endangering our lives because of their selfish idiocy. 100 fucking percent. And this is what's happening in our government right now, in the US government right now. Moving on from there. QAnon Congresswoman wants to impeach Joe Biden already. This is what I was just talking about. I love how I did include all of these wonderful stories. I hope I include the other one about the meals that the guy was having. I don't think I did. That's too bad. At least I told you about it. Because that's fucked. His shaman meals. I don't know why I didn't include that article, but trust me, it's a thing. That is horrible. Green voted against Trump's impeachment on Wednesday, just 1 week after pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol, says Paul Blest on January 14th, 2021. After President Donald on Vice.com, sorry. After President Donald Trump made history by becoming the first president to be impeached twice, House Republicans are getting a head start on retaliation against President-elect Joe Biden. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, I need another drink of water. Every time I hear that name, I'm just going to throw up in my mouth a little bit and drink some water. Excuse me. A freshman lawmaker from Georgia, who's best known for her support of the QAnon conspiracy theory, said on Twitter Wednesday that she would file articles of impeachment against Biden the day after he takes office. On behalf of the American people, we have to make sure our leaders are held accountable, Greene told Trumpist website Newsmax on Wednesday. We cannot have a president of the United States who's going to abuse the power of the presidency. Greene went on to argue that while she doesn't condone the violence at the Capitol on January 6th, the fact that there was far-right violence is cause to remove Biden from the presidency in order to prevent more of it. I am a big believer in having people in office who are willing to do the job, and I can't imagine people in this country being so fearful of the future of a Biden presidency that they may be willing to commit violence like they did in the Capitol here in Washington, D.C. We cannot have that. I do not condone that violence. Therefore, apparently she wants to appease those people by giving them exactly what they wanted. Biden won the votes of more than 81 million people, a clear majority of all voters who cast ballots in the presidential election, as well as 206 electoral college votes. Greene does not believe Biden legally won the election, but after dozens of legal challenges brought forward by the Trump campaign and groups and individuals aligned with the Republican Party, there's been zero evidence to support that claim. Though Greene's promise plays well with the GOP's far-right base, it's virtually certain that the Democratic-controlled Congress won't take up articles of impeachment against Biden. No shit. Greene voted no in the historic second impeachment vote against Trump in the House on Wednesday, just 1 week after pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol. Appearing on the floor of one of the most powerful lawmaking bodies in the world in a speech that was carried on national television, Greene donned a black mask that read the word censored, and she said it's the Democrats, actually, who should be removed from office. Let's not forget, she wore a mask previously, apparently, that said Trump won. And now she's saying censored, because I'm guessing people didn't let her wear the mask that said Trump won. As she said that the Democrats actually should be removed from office. Democrats' impeachment of President Trump today has set the standard that they should be removed from their support of violence against the American people. How is that support of violence? What the fuck are you talking about? Jesus fucking Christ. This is what happens when you allow Looney Tunes in office. Why do people vote for this woman? This QAnon crazy person. Moving on from there, Kyle Rittenhouse got a Proud Boys serenade at a bar while on bail, prosecutors say. This is a fun story from Vice.com. January 14th, 2021. This is the kid. This kid murdered 2 people in cold blood during the Black Lives Matter movement. With a gun. He went out there. This 17-year-old kid went out there with a rifle. Automatic rifle, an M16 rifle or whatever, and he shot and killed 2 people. Prosecutors would very much like Kyle Rittenhouse, charged with killing two Black Lives Matter protesters in August, to not go to bars, flash white power signs, or hang out with members of white supremacist groups or the Proud Boys. The request comes after Rittenhouse went to a pub approximately 90 minutes after he pleaded not guilty to charges including first-degree intentional homicide on January 5th. While there, he was loudly serenaded with what prosecutors described as an anthem for the Proud Boys, according to a motion filed Wednesday by the Kenosha County District Attorney's Office, because they're treating him like a superhero. They really are. Now prosecutors are trying to modify his bail agreement to keep him from repeating the alleged behavior. In their motion, prosecutors, why the fuck isn't he in prison? In their motion, prosecutors requested that the court, as a condition of Rittenhouse's bail, prohibit him from possessing or consuming alcohol or going to establishments where alcohol is served, making public displays of white power or white supremacy hand gestures or symbols, and having contact with any known militia members or known members of any violent white power, white supremacist groups or organizations, including the Proud Boys. Rittenhouse was arrested and charged with allegedly shooting two people and wounding a third during an August 25th demonstration in Kenosha over the police shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man. Rittenhouse said at the time that he was there to protect property and businesses, according to the New York Times. In November, he posted his $2 million bail and was released from custody. $2 million bail? How the fuck did he afford that? Rittenhouse was seen at a Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin bar called Pudgy's Pub on January 5th, clad in a free as fuck t-shirt, according to prosecutors. Local law enforcement was notified, according to the motion filed Wednesday, and surveillance footage was later retrieved and reviewed. Photos of Rittenhouse at the bar also circulated widely on social media. At the pub, prosecutors say Rittenhouse threw up the OK hand gesture, which apparently stands for white. See how that's a W, and then that is power. So white power. That's what they do. That's their little moves. If you see somebody doing that OK symbol, it no longer means okay. And where was I? Yes, symbol co-opted by right-wing trolls and white supremacists, and hung out with men who sang a song commonly associated with the Proud Boys, a far-right street-fighting gang whose members appeared at the Capitol Hill insurrection the following day. Within a few minutes of entering the bar, the defendant was loudly serenaded by five of the adult males in his group with the song Proud of Your Boy, which is an obscure song written for the 1992 Disney film Aladdin, prosecutors wrote. The violent white supremacist group called the Proud Boys was named after this song, which is sung by its members as an anthem and for self-identification. Absurd. Rittenhouse, who has been hailed as a hero by some on the far right, was at the pub with his mom and several other adults, so the mom is probably a supremacist as well. And they treat him like a hero, and they're probably like, good job, you went out there and you murdered those people, good job. And they proceeded to down 3 beers, prosecutors said. It's legal for underage people in Wisconsin to carry or drink alcohol so long as they're with a parent, according to NBC News. The prosecutor's motion suggests that several other adults with Rittenhouse and his mother were Proud Boys members, stating that Rittenhouse remained with these Proud Boys for the entire time he was in the bar. So wonderful. He killed people and he's out having drinks and being serenaded by people as a hero. Even though he's underage, his parents let him drink, which probably, I wonder how early that started. Enrique Tarrio, the self-styled chairman. My nose is so itchy. Enrique Tarrio, the self-styled chairman of the Proud Boys, denied that his organization is in contact with Rittenhouse in a statement to Vice News. Tarrio was arrested last week on misdemeanor charges of destruction of property and possession of 2 high-capacity firearm magazines, according to the New York Times. Although we support him in his case, Proud Boys have no contact with Kyle. As per the serenade, I find this to be extremely hilarious. I'm sure you do. I'm not going to read any more of this. Wait, what is this? The Washington Post is accusing Kyle of listening to a Disney song. I'm sure given the state... So they're denying that the Disney song is a thing. I'm sure given the state of the Democratic Party, this will be a criminal offense at some point. We wish Kyle the best. See, this is all a joke to them. They're turning this into a game that they're playing with a big grin on their face. Moving on from there, this is a short story. I have added a new source to my sources. I have an RSS feed that I pull these articles from. And I remove sources here and there that I feel like there isn't enough Canadian stories. So I thought I would add a source that has more Canadian and international news. So I added City News, Toronto City News. And they mostly work with the Associated Press anyways. Most of the stuff is Associated Press articles anyway. But some of it will also, so it'll be a lot of international Associated Press articles and some Canadian stuff, which will be useful to get that added. Um, I was looking for a source that wouldn't add too much to my RSS feed every night, but would give me some more perspective. So this is a story from the Associated Press by Jim Mustian. Dr. Harold N. Bornstein, the physician who once declared that Donald Trump would be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency, died January 8th. He was 73. So that's the guy who gave the whole, like, this is the healthiest dude ever. He was a really greasy looking doctor. Everybody doubted what he was saying was true. Was that the same one where they said that Donald Trump's BMI was like perfect? He was 1 pound below being overweight or something ridiculous like that. So he's dead. That was really all we really need to know from that article. But I thought that was interesting, and I didn't see other people covering that. And I thought that was something people should know, that that doctor died. Some doctor dying at 73 years old. This is a story by the Associated Press, for the Associated Press. Okay, I guess that happens sometimes. A waitress is credited with helping a boy after noticing bruises. This was just a sweet story, right? This sounds like sweet. A Florida waitress who, as I said, some international stories. A Florida waitress who noticed bruises on an 11-year-old boy flashed him a handwritten note asking him if he needed help, and when he nodded yes, she called the police, authorities say. Orlando police credited Flavian Carvalho, a waitress at Mrs. Potato Restaurant, with coming to the boy's aid on New Year's Eve when the child's parents weren't looking. Police took the boy to a hospital where doctors found bruises on his face, earlobes, and arms. He also was 20 pounds, 9 kilograms underweight, Detective Aaron Lawler told local media. Abuse, I say lightly, Lawler said Thursday at a news conference. It was torture. The boy told detectives that he had been tied by his ankles and neck and hung upside down from a door in his home. He also told detectives that his stepfather beat him with a wooden broom, a back scratcher, and closed fists, and that he'd been handcuffed and tied to a large moving dolly, according to the Orlando Sentinel. The boy's 34-year-old stepfather was arrested on charges of child abuse and neglect on the night the waitress called police, according to an arrest affidavit. Good job to that waitress. Like, she's a superhero. The child's 31-year-old mother, who was also at the restaurant, was arrested a week later on child neglect charge. The online court docket showed no attorneys listed for either stepfather or mother. Okay. So that's a great story. I'm glad I added that new source. Even if it seems like we'll mostly just, I don't think City News nowadays does a lot of their own reporting anymore. They just mostly refer to the Associated Press, but I think this will be one of the only sources I have that has an Associated Press, that focuses on Associated Press. So that might be okay, as long as I don't get too much redundancy. Moving on from there to the Geekly predictions. 3 things to look forward to next week. These 3 things are, starting at the top, WandaVision. You know what? Let's do the thing where we play the trailer. Wait, what if that gets us copyright, whatever. This is basically WandaVision looks really cool. It's already out, the first 2 episodes. I think there's more episodes coming every week. It's releasing weekly. It's not dropping all at once, which is something I appreciate. Here, I'll put it on pause. And it's, what happens if I do that? Cool, that's cool. No, that went too big, too big. Okay, how about that? There we go. As you can see, it's very stylistic. It's in the Marvel universe, but there's something going on with Wanda, with Scarlet Witch. And it involves Vision. Possibly has to do with him dying, maybe her grief from that. And she's trying to build the life she wanted with him. And it looks like it's going to take the form of sitcoms, and it just looks really cool and interesting and weird and fun and silly. And I can't wait. and I'm probably going to watch that as soon as I finish talking to you guys on this. So that is definitely the top thing coming out this week. But following close behind it is Hitman 3, which is releasing this week on I believe it's the 20th, and today is the 15th, so that'll be Tuesday. It's releasing on Tuesday. Uh, and this looks like it's going to be great. Hitman 1 and 2 are great, and one thing they seem to do is not change up the formula too much, which is obvious by the fact that you can play the previous games in the new game. It all carries forward. So if you just buy Hitman 3, you'll only own the Hitman 3 maps, but if you get the other two games on sale or something like that, then you can just import the maps into Hitman 3 and play the whole series in Hitman 3, including the campaigns, all the other targets, hopefully the elusive targets if they do a replay of those. That would be nice. I explained all that earlier, so I won't go into there, but I love this series. I love watching. I'm not usually a big fan of watching people play video games, but I don't mind doing it for like people doing Hitman. Like I loved watching Achievement Hunter run Hitman things and getting screwed and having coming up with these detailed plans and having them completely fall apart and just needing to kill everyone in the end is always a good time. That happens to all of us, and it can still be fun. These new games make it still fun to do stuff like that. Honestly, I think these new games do a really good job of like again, I have already said this a number of times, but the new games, as in the reboots, not even 2016, do a really good job of succeeding where the old games didn't necessarily, and in a way that is easily accessible, so that even people who maybe tried the older games were just like, this isn't for me. Like this, you can find shit to enjoy in these new games. Like they are so they give you so many different. They're more so varied with so many more options, and just like they just built so much on the concept and everything to the point where it's very hard not to find something to enjoy about these games. And so I really think definitely worth checking out Hitman 3. As well as WandaVision. Third thing on the list, really quite a bit. You know what? Let's say that's 10th on the list. And there's just a lot of blank spaces in between. Batwoman season 2. I enjoyed season 1 actually quite a lot, but I am not at all looking forward to season 2. I can't imagine looking forward less to season 2, quite honestly. Um, I liked her, Alice. I liked Alice, and I liked Alice's relationship with her sister, Ruby Rose, uh, who is no longer in the show. She left, and I appreciate that they didn't just like recast the character, but instead they're making it part of the storyline, which is something I could see them doing. Um, I'm curious to see how that plays out. I hope Ruby Rose shows up. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see Ruby Rose still show up for like 3 or 4 episodes. Because her problem was that it was too demanding, right? So I mean, why not have her show up on a smaller capacity and still be the character and still continue that storyline? So I'm hoping that's still a thing. And this show could be not awful. I'm gonna give it a try because I watch everything in the CW DC verse. If you are a fan of the Greg Berlanti verse, you know the Arrowverse with Flash, Supergirl, I watch it all. And if you do too, there's no reason to stop now. I don't think. But definitely there are signs going around that of um, what am I thinking of appreciating returns? I don't know. I think that makes sense, even though that wasn't the words I was looking for. Moving on from there to the Geekly Weekly Comments questions and stats. How are we doing as a brand? How is the 99% Geek brand doing today? Is the question I should be asking. You can always send me comments and questions to aldon@gmail.com, or you can DM me at Andrew Gates, Andrew Geczy, Geczy, on Twitter, and also at WingCommanderIV. That's WingCommanderIV on Instagram, or you can comment you can watch the Twitch stream and comment, and I'll read the comments. Or you can it says you can send a comment. You can go to www.99geek.ca/contact, but that's no longer a thing. I don't do that anymore. I'll delete that soon. But anyway, there hasn't been much in the way of progress as far as building an audience unless you count some successful tweets on Twitter. That was kind of cool. Last time I checked, my Twitter followers were at 222, where I've been kind of hovering around 220 for like forever. So it's a little bit over that now, thank God. I think I'd probably have more. It was like I got I had a bunch of tweets that were retweeted like hundreds of times. I was like, wow, pretty cool political based tweets, and I gained a few followers. I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I made a tweet about a porn star. It was kind of a lewd tweet. I was kind of being a little lewd. But I didn't mean anything. I meant it innocently. But I should know better. That's how James Gunn got unpopular, was saying something lewd that he meant it innocently enough. But anyway, I lost a number of Twitter followers for that. And then I had one of my tweets sort of become a sort of viral involving Marvel. Um, and somebody was like, "Man, Marvel should hire you as a writer." And I was like, "Well, I am a writer, and that would literally be my top dream come true. So yeah, I agree with you. They should." And that blew up randomly where people were like, "This guy's awesome," and got a bunch of retweets and likes and like over 100 likes. Like what? Um, and it's like, damn it, if I and one assumes that people were going to my profile and immediately the next tweet I had below that was still the porn star tweet. And they're probably reading that and be like, "Gee, this guy's not safe for work. I'm just gonna keep going." It's like, no, I'm plenty safe for work. Porn can be safe for work, can't it? You can talk about porn in a healthy and safe manner, can't you? No? Oh, okay. Well, sorry, my mistake. So I feel like I probably could have had even more followers based on the popularity of some of the tweets I've done this week. Which weird that I'm talking about that, but like the tweets for things like me criticizing, talking about the same kind of things I was talking in the news, Geekly, the news headlines. So I mean, that's all reasonable things. So my reactions to the news and things like that. And then the stuff about Marvel, they announced that apparently there's rumors that Captain America is coming back, and then shortly after that, Chris Evans came out saying, "News to me." So interesting. But when they announced that there were rumors, I posted a thing. You know what? Let me just read the tweet because it was so popular. We're gonna just read the tweet because what else do we got? We got no comments. We got no questions. We got nothing else going on here. This is how long has this been going on for? An hour and 30 minutes. We haven't reached 2 hours yet. We can always go further. Oh, our good friend Gorky has something else to say. "Oh shit, dude, yes, I think I might be able to catch the tail end of this one. Should be free soon." Oh, that's nice. That's probably him talking about this. Are you there? Probably not. What was I gonna read? Let's go up from here. All right, so Chris Evans is in talks to return, and I was like, do it. Why the hell not? He's still alive, just old in the comics. He's old for a while, and then they're able to de-age him. They can do that again. Bing, bang, boom, or Captain America. Only 37 likes. But then I said, what if, okay, wait, what if they de-age old Cap, and then he fights the Avengers for a few movies? But then we find out old Cap was never the real Cap, that he's a Hydra clone made to infiltrate the Avengers. They do an evil Cap storyline, and then the real Cap returns from the other timeline. And then somebody else is like, "Feige, come hire this man." And I was like, I wish he would. I'm an aspiring scriptwriter who would do anything to write for Marvel or Star Trek or Star Wars, or I don't know, Power Rangers, Sesame Street. Honestly, I wouldn't be picky. Uh, and people just kept liking that and being like, "Yeah, man, do it." And it's like, man, I probably could have picked up a few followers from that, but who knows? Who knows why people don't follow me? I'm at 222 now, so let me just take my blessing and go with it. Let's hope it doesn't drop below 222. Fingers crossed. I'm so tired of being stuck at 220. I swear to God, it's been years. I've been stuck at 220 for years. Years. Even like, I think that was what I was at around that point when Twitter took away my account for like 6 months. So it's been that long. And it's just like, it's just stays around that sort of area. Anyway, there's been no activity on Amazon, and I've been getting normal numbers on my Patreon and podcast. There was one day where my podcast only had like one hit, and it was like the worst podcast on the site. And it's like, whoa. And then it went back to normal numbers after that. So I don't know what that was about. Anyway, no new feedback, a whole lot of nada. My name is Andrew Geczy. My brand is 99% Geek, found at 99geek.ca. I'm a writer writing monthly chapters of novels, like episodes of TV shows, releasing them in 4 weekly parts, a teaser in 3 acts on Sundays on my Patreon page at patreon.com/99geek. At the end of the month, the finished chapter is added to the PDFs attached at the bottom of every post. Finally, the finished books are self-published on Amazon. There's urban fantasy tales about a teenage girl turned into a vampire against her will, or a scorned lover investigating paranormal phenomena, or a journalist covering news and politics in the Middle East. There's a sci-fi story about people on a dying world trying to build a ship to a new one. There's a fantasy story about a fallen angel trying to stop the end of the world, and there's more coming, and it's all attached at the bottom of every post on the site in convenient PDF format, readable on computers, tablets, ebook readers, and phones. I also have a Geekly Weekly blog and host video game playthroughs and matchmaking streams on Twitch, and eventually post them on my YouTube and Patreon pages. So stay tuned and maybe subscribe. It's only $1, and the support you show will go a very long way, I promise. There are also higher tiers. Give $5 one month and you can name a character or a location or suggest a thing you might want to see. Basically, you get to give a noun, and then I promise to incorporate that noun into one of my stories somehow. Maybe not the same month you give the suggestion, but within one cycle of books guaranteed. No matter how crazy, you can't sabotage me, I promise, and you can keep giving nouns for every month you pay at the $5 tier. Or if you give $10, you don't get 2 nouns, but you can give a description. Describe the personality of your character, or the look of your location, or the importance of your item. Or if you give $5 or $10 to the video game streaming or weekly blog categories, I have multiple categories. If you give more money to those categories, then I would put more money into those aspects of my work. If in video game streaming, it would go towards like better equipment and more video games, and my weekly blog, it would just go towards improving this. And then so I was trying to say, if you give more money, then you can give it, but you don't want to suggest something for my stories, but you want to suggest something for like how to improve my writing, or how to improve anything. You know what? You don't even have to give me money for that. Just tell me. Just tell me anything you think it would be an improvement. Let me know. I want to make this as the best it can be, and I want to do the best that I can, offer the best service to people that I can, so that I can benefit as well. It would be nice. You can also give $1 towards supporting my efforts at video game streaming or my weekly blog, is what I was saying. If you don't want to subscribe on Patreon, you can also give at paypal.me/99geek. And for a limited time, the same rules about suggesting a noun apply there. You can write a below your very contribution. I'm going to move that soon. That was more when I was starving. I'm not really starving anymore. I'm as poor as it gets, living paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes starving. Not anymore. So I understand if you are too. I don't want to take food out of your mouth, so your attention is enough. Say something, comment here at the very least. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew Geczy or Instagram at WingcommanderIV. That's Roman numerals IV, by the way, not normal 4. Or email me at aldon@gmail.com. Live long and prosper. May the force be with you. Long live Marceline the Vampire Queen. We are the 99% Geek.